There are moments, just a second, that are enough to turn a person's life in a direction that can never be reversed. Imagine you are on a night flight. Everyone is asleep. Only a 16-year-old black girl handcuffed to a cold metal bar in the dark galley is gasping for her last breath. No one looks at her. No one asks what happened. And most painfully, no one thinks to choose between power and compassion. If it were you at that moment, what would you do? Would you stay silent, like the majority? Or would you choose to stand by the child, in need of saving? Today's story is not to accuse anyone. It is for each of us to ask ourselves, have there been moments in our lives when we have unintentionally turned away from the pain of others? If you believe that justice and kindness still have a place in this world, like, share, and subscribe to the channel to join me in a story that may make you choke up but also bring hope. Now then, here we go. The night sky above the Atlantic Ocean, stretched out like an endless black carpet dotted with a few faint stars obscured by the glow of cabin lights. The North Star Airlines, Boeing 787, was hurtling toward Zurich at more than 560 miles per hour. Inside the passenger cabin, all seemed calm, or at least on the surface. But in the dark corner at the back where few people go except to get coffee or tissues, there is an image that if you see it you probably won't be able to forget. A young black girl, thin and smaller than her 16 years, was handcuffed to a metal bar just below the lockers. Her name was Lena Carter. Her eyes were half closed, her breathing weak as if she were about to stop. Her wrists were swollen, marked by the metal cutting into her skin. Her whole body was tilted to one side by the vibration of the plane. And strangely, no one stopped. No one asked. Not a single look of pity. It's not a movie scene, it's reality. That reality began a few hours ago when Lena's watch still showed a normal heartbeat. When she still held in her hand the first-class ticket her father had given her as a gift for her first trip abroad alone. When she still thought that this flight would be a journey to adulthood, not a struggle for survival. But in just a few seconds, her world was turned upside down. It all started at the airport, where strange looks were always given whenever a young black girl appeared in the priority area. Lena didn't want to pay attention. Her father had always taught her, you don't need to prove your worth to others, you just need to know who you are. But that day, it was hard to believe. The woman at the gate stared at Lena for longer than necessary. The man behind her made a quiet comment just loud enough for Lena to hear. And then, as she entered first class, another pair of eyes appeared, cold and judgmental. Monica Hale, the flight attendant. The moment Monica's eyes fell on Lena's casual hoodie, trouble began to set in. There was something familiar in those cold eyes. Something many people of color have experienced: default suspicion. Lena had never made a mistake, never caused trouble, never done anything to scare anyone. But just because she didn't fit their image of a first-class passenger, she immediately became suspect. There was a question hanging in the cabin at that moment. A question that many people thought but did not say. Does this girl really belong here? And the moment one asks that question is the moment Lena's fate is decided. The rest of the truth, the moments Lena was treated like a criminal, the breaths gradually fading in the darkness, and the moment her father, the most powerful black CEO in America, forced the entire airline system to stop, all started with those very eyes that day. So, before we go any further, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever been in a situation where your appearance dictated who you were, where you were allowed to be, and what your worth was? If you have, you know Lena better than anyone. And if you are ready, we will join you on this painful but necessary journey, where justice does not come from gunfire, but from the choices of people standing up to their own mistakes. There is something little known about children who grow up in the shadow of powerful fathers. It is that they learn to be silent before they learn to speak. They learn to observe before they learn to react. And most importantly, they learn to read what others do not say. Lena Carter is such a child. Since she was little, Lena had a strange habit. She liked to sit in the living room every night waiting for Marcus Carter, her father, to finish a late meeting and come home. Not to talk much, not to tell him about his day at school, just to be there at the exact moment he set down his briefcase, loosened his tired tie, and smiled as if the world felt a little lighter just by the sight of his daughter. Her father always said, Lena, in the world out there, many people will look at you and think you are not enough. But remember this, you don't need to speak loudly to be heard. True strength comes from calmness. Those words followed Lena all her life. And, ironically, they were also the words that kept her silent more than necessary on the day of the incident. Lena grew up in a large house in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. It was a house filled with light, but one important thing was missing: her mother's laughter. Her mother died when Lena was 8 in an accident Marcus never told the full story of. All he said was, "You are the last thing your mother has left me. I will protect you to the end." From then on, a gentle, quiet bond formed between father and son. No noise, no show. Just two lonely people who knew how to lean on each other without too many words. In real life, Lena is a quiet but extremely delicate girl. She likes to carry a small notebook, writing down trivial things: the color of the sky before the rain, the yellow light of the coffee shop at the end of the street, a stranger's unfinished words that make her think. To her friends, Lena is a listening ear, unjudgmental, unrushed. Her presence is like a rare shoulder of peace at 16. But it was also that silence that made it easy for others to misunderstand that she was weak, that she didn't know how to fight back, that she didn't understand how cruel the world really was. The truth is, Lena understands. She understands better than they think, because she is the daughter of Marcus Carter, one of the few black CEOs to head a national transportation security corporation, Carter Shield Industries. A man who, despite his talent, still has to hear things like, "Who are you here for? Sorry, I thought you were in charge of engineering." "Oh, are you really the CEO?" The words were so light, but left a deep cut in his daughter's heart. Lena grew up and saw it all. She saw her father smile when people looked down on him, but when he got into his car, his eyes were sadder than any storm. She saw him stand up and speak in meetings full of people who didn't want to listen, but he stood firm. She saw him judged by the color of his skin, but he never let that color determine his kindness. She admired him, but she was also afraid. Afraid that the world would treat her exactly as it treated him. And yes, it started a long time ago. In school, Lena was asked, "How did you get into honors class? I thought you were on the basketball team." "You know, it's lucky your dad is rich otherwise." She just laughed it off. Those words weren't enough to break her. But they taught her one thing. To be respected, sometimes you have to show proof. Otherwise, people will assume you don't belong anywhere. So for this trip to Zurich, her first trip truly out into the world on her own, Lena was well prepared. Plane tickets saved in her phone, confirmation email, passport tucked in her pocket, a list of things to do when she landed, a note on her phone that said, "Don't worry, everything will be fine." But she forgot one thing. No amount of preparation is enough to combat prejudice. That afternoon, before heading to the airport, Marcus left the office early to meet his daughter for a pre-flight snack. He brought with him a small box of cookies and a thick envelope. "Open it." Lena opened the envelope and saw a North Star Airlines first-class ticket. She laughed. "Why do you have to do that? Economy is fine." Marcus looked at her for a long time. "If I could guarantee you would fly with respect, I would. But sometimes, money can only buy a chair. It can't buy the way people see you." Lena was silent. She had no idea that those words just a few hours later would become the most painful truth of her life. When she arrived at JFK Airport, Lena walked into the first-class area with a strange feeling. Not pride, not excitement, but apprehension. In that moment, she thought of her father, of the way he walked into a boardroom full of white people and was seen as lost, of the way he kept his back straight, still polite, even though they didn't really see him as a CEO. "I have to be strong," she told herself. But as soon as she reached the check-in counter, the first gaze that met her was not one of welcome, but of suspicion. A look that every black person has seen at least once in their life. Lena paused. Her heart beat faster. She held out her phone. The ticket was scanned. The machine turned green, but the clerk's eyes remained fixed on her. "First class, yes, yes. Are you going alone?" "Yes." A few people behind started to look over. Someone whispered again, "I wonder how to buy it." Lena heard everything, but she chose to keep quiet, because her father had taught her, "Don't let them see you wavering." She tried to keep going, but somewhere deep inside, a fear was growing. That today would be more than just a look of dislike. That it would become a storm. JFK Airport, on a weekend afternoon, is always as crowded as a small city. The loudspeakers calling for flights are everywhere, mixed with the sound of dragging suitcases, crying children, and adults trying to stay calm amid the jostling crowd. To many, it is just a familiar noise. But to Lena Carter, that day, it was like a psychological test that she was not prepared for. She stood in front of the large screen that indicated the gates, clutching her backpack more tightly than necessary. It held nothing of value except her passport, her wallet, and a small notebook. But Lena held it as if it were a spiritual anchor. She whispered, "Gate B32, I'll be fine." She spoke to herself like she was reassuring a trembling child. Her footsteps carried her down a long corridor. The light reflected off the large windows where planes were parked in rows, creating a feeling both foreign and familiar. Lena had never been far from America, but she had always imagined the world outside was so vast that it could heal all her old wounds. Today, she wanted to believe that, but things started to change as she approached the first-class area. The North Star Airlines first-class check-in area was much quieter than the rest of the airport. Thick carpets, soft yellow lights, soft voices. This was where important people were treated like honored guests. But when Lena walked in, the quiet became a beat more tense. The woman at the counter, a gate clerk, named Sharon, looked up at Lena. Her gaze wasn't welcoming. It was a familiar gaze that any black child who had ever walked alone would understand. A gaze that asked a question before the words were even spoken. Lena swallowed and handed over the phone. "I checked into North Star 118 to Zurich." Sharon looked at the ticket on the screen, then at Lena. Then back at the ticket. The look was like an invisible measurement, comparing Lena with her gray hoodie, low-cut hair, and gentle expression with her image of a first-class passenger. The two images in her eyes seemed mismatched. "Are you going alone?" "Yes." "Are you sure this is the right trip?" A redundant question, but a familiar one. Lena took a deep breath, trying to keep her voice calm. "Yes. My dad gave me the ticket. Here's my passport." Sharon looked at her passport, then at Lena. Her gaze remained unchanged. Behind, a few people began to pay attention. A middle-aged man in a suit whispered to his wife, "Honey, she must have gone to the wrong line." The wife glanced at Lena from head to toe. "Look, she doesn't look like first class," Lena heard. She heard every word, every gasp of breath that followed the remark. She didn't understand how people could judge her so quickly. They didn't know who she was. They didn't know who her father was. They didn't know how much effort she had put in to stand here alone, confident, without relying on her father's authority. But prejudice doesn't wait for people to tell their stories. It just needs a look. Sharon typed into the computer. There was a long silence. Then the machine said, "Cleared." Sharon smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was more like the smile one gets when one reluctantly accepts something. "Okay, you can come in. The gate is this way." Lena nodded, thanked him, and walked away. But her steps were still shaking slightly. She didn't want to pay attention to the gossip behind her. But her mind kept replaying the woman's words. "It doesn't look like first class. Why do people think this way? Why is how it looks so important?" She thought of her father. If he were standing here with his expensive suit and sharp eyes, would they be suspicious? Or was it just because he was a grown man? Or was it because he was the CEO and they didn't realize? Or if he wore a hoodie like her, would their eyes be the same as today? Lena wasn't sure. But she did know one thing. Prejudice comes in many forms. One of them is silence. Silence when people look at you like you don't belong. Silence when they exchange looks that say something is wrong here. Silence when no one stands up for the truth. A first-class ticket has no skin color. As Lena walked to the waiting area, the stares continued. But this time, there was someone who noticed her differently. Evelyn Brooks, a young flight attendant who had only been on the job 6 months, was standing by the service counter looking at Lena with concern. Not judgment, not suspicion, but concern. Evelyn had seen similar scenes before. She knew that the airline industry sometimes operated on snap judgment, a necessary skill when dealing with security, but also a fertile ground for prejudice to grow like roots. Evelyn looked at Lena for a few seconds longer than was appropriate. Long enough to see something familiar in her eyes, the wariness of someone who had been misunderstood too many times. She wanted to go over and say something nice like, "Don't mind that," or "Have a good flight." But Monica Hale, the head flight attendant, was standing nearby. Evelyn knew Monica didn't like staff interfering with passengers' emotions. So, she kept quiet. Another silence that widened the distance between Lena and the world. Gate B32 opened. The first-class announcement sounded. The queue began to form quickly, a group of people in expensive suits, carrying laptops, pulling shiny suitcases. Among them, Lena was a small bass note in the din. She stood at the end of the line. She didn't want to be the center of attention. She just wanted to get on the plane, sit in her seat, and leave everything alone. But that didn't happen. Because when it was Lena's turn to walk to the first-class entrance, Monica Hale was standing right in front of her. Monica didn't need to ask. She didn't need to look at the ticket. She just looked Lena up and down once. That look was sharper than Sharon's. Heavier. More assertive. "Are you sure we're in the right place?" Monica asked. There was no hint of good-natured doubt in her voice. It was like a question that already had the answer. No. Lena smiled slightly, her familiar defensive smile. I'm flying first class. I have a ticket." Monica tilted her head. "Let me see." Lena handed over the phone. Monica looked at it, then frowned. In that moment, Lena felt what many people of color have felt. It's not that people don't believe in your ticket. They don't believe you can get it. Lena tried to keep calm. She didn't want to cause trouble, didn't want to be the center of attention, but Monica decided otherwise. In a voice loud enough for everyone around to hear, she said, "Let me double-check. There are a lot of cases of fake screenshot tickets being used these days." Lena started. She felt a chill run down her spine. A man behind muttered, "I knew it. I can see the problem." Monica pressed the radio and called the security representative. And in an instant, the atmosphere changed. It was no longer the noise of the airport. It was an invisible tension, like a storm brewing before it came. That was the moment Lena realized today's battle wasn't between her and Monica. It was between her and a system that was all too accustomed to doubting people like her. And she had only one weapon: the calmness her father always taught her. But is calm enough? When those who are stronger, more numerous, and more powerful are preparing to impose what they believe is right. The answer? Lena didn't know yet. But fate was getting closer. Very close. As Lena approached the first-class entrance, the line of people in front of her thinned out, leaving only the last few passengers to place their suitcases on the scanner. It should have been the end of it. Just walk through the door, find a seat, pull up the covers, and let the 8-hour flight pass by as easily as a deep sleep. But no matter how peaceful Lena's life is, it can easily be disrupted by the smallest things: a look, a gesture, or like today, a woman named Monica Hale. Monica stood as straight as a bar of cold steel. Her navy blue uniform hugged her body, her scarf tied in a classic style, making her look like someone who always needed the world to follow her standards. When Lena approached, Monica did not smile as she had for the previous passengers. Not because she was tired, but because she looked at Lena as if she were out of sync. "A person who does not belong here. Hold on a minute." Monica's voice was loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. It wasn't harsh, but there was a sharpness that made Lena pause. Lena lifted her phone and held it out in front of her. "Here's your ticket. First-class seat 2A. Monica didn't take it right away. She looked at the screen, then at Lena from head to toe. Her eyes moved slowly, as if trying to piece together two incompatible pieces of information: an expensive first-class ticket and a black girl in a plain hoodie. Over the years of her career, Monica has met many different types of passengers, and perhaps in her confident way of thinking, she knows who is suitable and who is not suitable at a glance. Today, according to the mechanical criteria in her head, Lena falls into the not suitable category, a group she often describes as looks suspicious, not matching the profile. Probably an error. A group where skin color is always a silent factor, but no one speaks out. "Let me take a closer look." Monica held out her hand, but not politely. It was the gesture of someone confiscating something. Lena put the phone in Monica's hand. She tried to keep her face calm. "When they want you to be angry, you have to be calm," Dad had said. But her hands were shaking slightly, not because of fear, but because of sadness. Monica looked at the ticket for a long time. Then she said something Lena would never forget. "This ticket seems strange." "What? Strange?" Lena asked, her voice small but clear. Monica tilted her head, holding the phone close to her face. "There have been a few cases recently where people have used fake screenshots. You should check with security." The words caused the atmosphere to change, like a stone thrown into a lake. Then ripples spread out, carrying with them curious, judgmental, and slightly prying eyes. A man in a nearby row whispered but loud enough for others to hear. You can tell by looking. Kids these days love to try their hand at clickbait. A woman standing next to her turned her face towards Lena close like that. First class. Those words had no knife, but they cut into Lena's heart like thin incisions. Evelyn Brooks, standing a few meters away, watched the scene with a sinking heart. She wanted to step forward to say something, but her lips wouldn't open. She was afraid of Monica, afraid of losing her job, afraid of doing something she had never been taught how to do. Silence. Another silence that contributed to Lena's feeling of isolation. "I'll call security to check quickly," Monica said, holding up her walkie-talkie. "Can you explain?" Lena asked. No yelling, no crying, just a very matter-of-fact question from a girl who was used to being misunderstood. Monica didn't answer directly. She just curled her lips. "The rules are the rules. You can't go through first class with an unverified ticket." Not verified. The scanner was green. The system recognized it. But Monica still decided not to believe it. Not to believe the system. Not to believe the information. Not to believe the truth. She just couldn't believe the person standing in front of her. Security has not arrived yet, but the pressure has arrived. Lena felt her chest tighten, not from fear, but from that familiar feeling. Coming back again. The feeling of being seen as a fraud just because of her appearance. She remembered the morning a few months ago when she went to buy a new laptop at the mall. The clerk followed her for 10 minutes, just to be sure. She remembered the suspicious looks as she entered the luxurious area of the hotel where her father was meeting. She remembered the look that said, "Who brought this girl here?" Today, all those eyes focused on one point, one moment, one boarding pass. Then things got worse. "Monica, what's wrong?" a man's voice called out from behind. It was Agent Davis Moore, the flight's air marshal. A tall man with sharp eyes, his footsteps were so strong that they made the air change. Monica immediately pointed at Lena. "This passenger shows signs of using a fake ticket. I have doubts about his identity and purpose of boarding the flight." Davis looked at Lena like she was a suspect. It was worse than Monica's. He didn't ask. He didn't need proof. He just concluded. "Passport," he said briefly. Lena handed over her passport. Her hand was shaking slightly. Davis turned to the page with the picture. Looked, then looked at Lena. "Stand aside." He pointed to a corner of the wall. No one said Lena was wrong. No one gave her a chance to explain. Just one look from Monica, one ambiguous sentence, and one prejudiced security officer was enough to turn her from a legitimate passenger into a security suspect. Evelyn stood about 10 feet away. She saw Lena try to give a small, weak smile, as if she were reassuring herself that everything would be okay. But Lena's eyes said otherwise. Something Evelyn couldn't bear to see. When a child starts to believe they're wrong, just because adults say so. Evelyn pursed her lips and bowed her head. She wondered, if I were the one being stopped, how would I feel? And then she felt pain. Pain for someone she didn't even know. Davis returned the passport. "We need to verify further. You stay here." Lena looked at him, then at Monica, then at the first-class door behind them, the door that should have opened to her, but now looked like a steel wall. "What did I do wrong?" The question was small, light, but it froze the air. Monica crossed her arms. "When we say we need to check further, we mean it for a reason." Lena bit her lip. She wanted to say that her ticket was perfectly valid, that her father had bought it from the company, that she had done nothing wrong. But she remembered her father's words, "Don't react emotionally. Always stay calm before making any decisions." So she kept quiet. And that silence made Monica think even more that she was right. The first-class doors remained open. Other passengers boarded the plane easily. Only Lena was stopped. For a few seconds, she felt like she was standing outside her own life, as if someone could point at her at any moment and say, "No, this is not for you." And the most painful thing was, no one was on her side. No one. Evelyn took a deep breath. She wanted to step forward, but her feet were glued to the floor. She wanted to say, "She has every right to be on the plane," but her throat tightened. The price of silence is sometimes greater than we think. But she only understood that when it was too late. As the last passenger walked through the first-class doors, Monica said to Davis, We need to get this girl out of the boarding aisle. And that was the moment that marked the beginning of it all. Humiliation, misunderstanding, invisible but sharp discrimination, and a battle Lena never thought she would have to face. The atmosphere at the B-32 boarding gate was already tense. But when Agent Davis Moore appeared and stood right in front of Lena, the tension turned to something heavier, as if half of the breath around her was sucked away. Davis didn't ask why Monica was suspicious. He didn't need to hear Lena's explanation. In his cold, judgmental eyes, Lena wasn't a passenger. She was the subject, a black girl wearing a hoodie, traveling alone. First-class ticket, for him that was enough. Stand up straight, Davis commanded, his voice low but sharp as a knife. Lena obeyed. No resistance. No questions asked. Just tried to stay calm, like her father had taught her. We need to verify your identity and purpose for boarding the plane. Davis continued. A man nearby chuckled. I know. Childish. Trying to squeeze into first class to take selfies. A woman holding a designer bag sighed in frustration. I don't understand why the company doesn't control it more closely. Can anyone enter this area? Those words were small, but each one pierced Lena like a needle. She didn't look at them. She just looked down at her faded sneakers. The sneakers that had accompanied her through many afternoons waiting for her father at the office, many subway rides to school, many small memories that she always cherished. Today, those shoes became the reason people thought she didn't belong in the beautiful world behind the first-class doors. She wondered, if I wore a blazer, carried an expensive bag, would things be different? A painful question that many people like her have asked themselves. Monica stood next to Davis, arms crossed, as if she had just done something important for national security. Mr. Davis, I told you. This ticket is suspicious, she said, holding Lena's phone out in front of her as evidence. Davis nodded. There have been several cases of young passengers using fake first-class tickets recently. I've dealt with them. Monica quickly added, moreover. She didn't answer clearly when I asked. Lena opened her mouth. I just said what needed to be said. Quiet, Davis interrupted. His voice didn't need to be loud to make Lena stop abruptly. Evelyn, who was standing behind the counter, looked at the scene with burning eyes. She didn't like the way Davis was talking to a child like that. She also didn't like the way Monica was using her confidence to hide her personal prejudice, but Evelyn remained still. She bit her lip until it bled, but her legs did not move. Another North Star employee, Mr. Well, the gate assistant approached and asked Monica in a low voice. What's the problem? This girl's ticket has been confirmed by the system. Monica glanced at him, as if warning, will let me and the air marshal handle this. You just worry about boarding the passengers. Will hesitated for a second, but in the end, he turned away. Another person chooses silence. Today's world seems too familiar with this silence. Several passengers stopped to watch. Phones started going up. A live streamer said in a low voice, everyone, there's a drama at Gate B-32. A girl is suspected of using a fake first-class ticket. I wonder if it's true. Just one sentence like that was enough to distort Lena's image on social media. No need for the truth, just a story that sounds reasonable. Lena heard the live stream. She closed her eyes for a second. Just a second. And in that second, the image of her father appeared in her mind. You don't need to prove yourself worthy to anyone. You just need to know that you are worthy to yourself. Do you have anything to prove this ticket is real? Davis asked. This is the ticket in the airline app, Lena replied. The app is easy to fake, Monica interjected. I have a confirmation email. Emails are easy to fake. Lena took a deep breath. Her throat tightened. I have papers. I have a passport. I have everything to prove. Enough, Davis said. We're taking you to a private area for investigation. Investigate. Lena repeated, eyes wide. Davis nodded. We need to ensure the safety of the flight. People nearby whispered. It must be true. It looks suspicious. What are those kids thinking these days? Evelyn shook her head slightly, as if to dispel the words that were piercing her heart. She couldn't bear it anymore. Evelyn stepped forward. Monica, she said softly. Let me check my manifest. I clearly remember her name. Monica didn't let her finish. Evelyn, get back to your post right now. This is none of your business. The cold words cut off Evelyn's every little effort. She stepped back. Her heart felt like it was being squeezed. Lena stood there, surrounded by strangers' eyes. Some were pitying, some were gloating, but mostly judgmental. The same eyes that had troubled her father for years. The eyes she thought she had prepared herself to face. But when they were directed at her like today, she knew she had never been ready. "Let's go." Davis grabbed Lena's wrist as if she were a criminal. "I did nothing wrong," Lena said, her voice shaking for the first time. "That is something we will verify," he replied. Monica stood behind arms, crossed eyes, slightly satisfied with her professionalism. But for Lena, that moment was like a blow to the heart, not because of physical pain, but because she felt like her entire being was covered in a layer of dust from doubt, prejudice, and toxic words that society unintentionally created. In the moment of being pulled away, Lena looked at Evelyn. Evelyn looked back, and in that look, Lena saw what she wanted to hold on to most at this moment. Someone who believes in her truth, even if he isn't strong enough to protect her. Lena smiled slightly, a sad smile, a smile that said, "I understand. It's okay. I'm used to it." And it was that smile that made Evelyn feel her heart drop heavy as a stone. She wondered, was this the moment she would regret for the rest of her life? Davis pulled Lena toward the side aisle, where the private investigation was. The passengers behind her started boarding the plane, as if nothing had happened. They continued with their lives. As for Lena, she was entering a dark area that she was not prepared for. A darkness opened up not from what she did, but from what others believed about her. And this is just the beginning. Lena was led into a side hallway where the dim yellow light was not enough to soften the feeling of being cut off from the rest of the world. Davis walked ahead, his steps long and strong. Lena followed each step, sinking into the thick carpet that no longer felt soft to her. The passengers behind her continued boarding. No one called out to her. No one asked if she needed help. Silence. The kind of silence that makes one's heart drop to the ground. "Sit here." Davis pointed to a metal chair against the wall. Lena sat. Her hands rested on her thighs, trying not to shake. "Now answer each question one by one." Davis's voice was like the sound of metal grinding against metal. "Yes," Lena replied softly. "Where did you get this ticket?" "My dad bought it." "Your dad's name?" "Marcus Carter." Davis frowned. "Marcus Carter?" "Yes." "What does he do?" "He is the CEO of Carter Dynamics." Davis's eyes flickered quickly, but Lena saw it. Just for a moment. The name Carter Dynamics is not unfamiliar in the security or commercial world. It is a large corporation in the field of logistics technology. But what makes Davis suspicious is the huge difference between what Lena said and what he saw with his own eyes. A skinny black girl, wearing a hoodie, no sign of rich family whatsoever. Davis leaned against the wall. "What proof do you have that you are his child?" The question was like a knife. Lena swallowed. "I only have my passport and tickets. My dad sent. I have family photos on my phone if you need." Davis interrupted. The image could be fake. Lena let out a sigh. "So, what do I need to do to get your trust?" Davis did not answer. Because in his heart, the answer was already there from the beginning. Monica appeared in the hallway doorway, walkie-talkie in hand. "Mr. Davis, the plane is about to close. You need to make a decision quickly." "This girl has not been verified," Davis replied. Monica glanced at Lena as if she were a troubled object. "We can't let passengers doubt the safety of the flight. I think we should take her off the trip today." Lena felt cold all over when she heard that. "I didn't do anything wrong. I just wanted to get on the plane to see my dad. He's waiting for me in Zurich." Monica folded her arms. "You didn't cooperate. You didn't provide any convincing evidence. It was unusual for you to be in the first-class area." Lena took a deep breath. "Because I wear a hoodie. Because I'm black." Davis and Monica looked at each other for an instant. The moment was small, but the truth in it was huge. "No one mentioned that," Monica said, trying to keep her voice calm. But Lena's eyes didn't leave hers. "But that's what you think." "I see." Compressed air. Evelyn, standing nearby, heard it all. Her heart pounded. She had never heard a passenger say what everyone else was thinking but not saying. She wanted to step forward, wanted to say, "Monica, you're wrong. Davis, this girl didn't do anything. Let me verify." But my feet were still stuck in fear. Fear of losing my job. Fear of being labeled undisciplined. And Evelyn knew, sometimes people don't have to mean evil to do wrong. They just have to not dare to do what's right. She saw Lena looking around, searching for some look that might give her some hope, but no one responded. That almost made Evelyn cry. Davis checked his watch. We're running out of time. Monica nodded. I will report to the captain that this passenger is removed from the list. Lena's eyes widened. No, please. I need to get on this flight. My dad, I can book another ticket, Monica replied. But my dad. Enough, Davis said, his voice higher than usual. Lena stood up. Let me call Dad. I'll call him right away. He might. Davis reacted immediately, placing his hand on Lena's shoulder and forcing her down into the chair. No calls during the verification process. Lena felt like the world was broken in two. Her eyes gradually turned red. I didn't do anything wrong. She repeated, her voice as small as a breeze. Her words seemed to remind both others and herself. She felt a lump in her throat. A fear she once thought she was strong enough to overcome was coming back, gripping her small heart. Evelyn turned away. Hot tears fell down her cheeks. Monica approached the plane, preparing to report to the captain. Passenger Lena Carter has been denied boarding due to security concerns. But as soon as she picked up the radio, a phone buzzed in Lena's pocket. A familiar ring, a text message. Lena looked down at her Apple Watch screen. A message from Dad. Lena, Dad is on his way to Zurich. Text him when you board. Lena bit her lip. Tears welled up in her eyes. Not because of the pain, but because she knew that if her father found out, he wouldn't let it go. But she didn't want her father to worry, didn't want him to bear the added pressure of her being treated unfairly. She just wanted it to be over. Just to get on the plane, sit in her seat, and leave this place of heavy gazes. Mr. Davis, Monica called out. Captain calls for a 2-minute closing. I suggest eliminating this girl. Lena heard every word. No, she whispered. Please don't. Davis crossed his arms. She hasn't proven the ticket is valid. Lena looked up. So what do you want? What proof do I have to give you to believe me? Davis was silent. And in that moment, Lena understood. There was no evidence a person of color could offer that would be enough to change the preconceived notions in someone else's mind. Do not have. A long silence. A silence heavier than the scolding. Heavier than the accusation. Evelyn looked at Monica. She gathered her courage. Monica. Her voice was shaky, but clear. You haven't checked your manifest yet. I just checked seat 2. A has the name, Lena Carter. Monica spun around. Evelyn, get back to your position. Evelyn took a deep breath. No, she said. Her voice was small, but firm as stone. I can't be silent any longer. Her ticket is real. Davis looked at Evelyn, then at Monica. His eyes wavered. Monica blushed. Her voice was sharp. Evelyn, you don't understand how serious this is. Evelyn looked straight at Monica. It's not as serious as what we're doing wrong. The air broke. Everyone stood still. Even Davis said nothing. Lena looked at Evelyn, the only one on her side. A tear fell. Not because she was sad, but because finally, someone saw her. Monica gritted her teeth. I'll review the manifest. But I suspect the system is at fault. Evelyn handed over her tablet. No errors. Say at 2, a Lena Carter first class. Check-in completed. Boarding pass verified. Davis leaned against the wall, his forehead furrowed slightly. In that moment, the truth began to break down the wall of prejudice. But prejudice doesn't disappear that easily. It just goes quiet for a while before it erupts again. Lena let out a small breath, thinking she had escaped danger. But she didn't know. This was just the beginning of the storm. A storm will squeeze the breath out of her, right over the Atlantic. Evelyn stood there in the middle of the narrow hallway, her face flushed with tension, still holding the tablet that displayed the name Lena Carter, First Class, 2A. She didn't expect to dare to defy Monica, but when she saw Lena sitting hunched over in the metal chair, her wide eyes filled with despair. Evelyn knew, if she kept silent any longer, she wouldn't be able to respect herself. No one spoke for several seconds. No one moved. The air between the three of them, Monica, Davis, and Evelyn, was as tense as a bowstring that could snap at the slightest touch. Monica was the first to break the silence. Okay. Her voice was as hard as glass. Even if the manifest has a name, I still need to verify the procedure. It's a security policy. Evelyn opened her mouth. But Evelyn, Monica interrupted. You are not responsible. Go back to your post. Evelyn bit her lip. For the first time in her life, she hated that cold, commanding voice so much that she wanted to scream. But she knew that if she made a scene at the gate, she would be suspended immediately. She could only stand there as a helpless witness. Davis crossed his arms, looking at Lena intently as if pondering something. Girl, he said, even if your name is on the manifest, there is still a possibility that the account was hacked or the ticket was obtained by someone else who had unauthorized access to the system. Lena looked up. Her eyes were tired, but she maintained the calm her father had trained her to have over the years. I'm not a hacker. I'm not a criminal. I'm just a kid trying to get on a flight to see my dad. Monica crossed her arms. All the suspects say, I am innocent. We can't rely on your words. Suspect, Lena repeated, her voice choked. From then on, it was like a punch in the chest. Why was a child called Dad? Why did people have the right to label her so harshly just because of her appearance, her age, her skin color? Lena's small hand unconsciously clenched the strap of her backpack. It was the only support she had left. The plane doors were about to close. The last passengers were boarding, and the ground staff were preparing to collect the boarding notice board. Monica looked at her watch. Mr. Davis, we have to decide now. This girl could delay the whole flight. That, as if Lena were a burden, not a child, not a valid passenger, just a problem to be dealt with. Evelyn clenched her fists. She wanted to shout, you're the one delaying me. But she didn't dare. The fear in her heart was too great. Davis looked at Lena again. Do you have an adult with you? No. Did anyone check my identity when I went through security? Yes. Everything is fine. Do you have any documents to prove your relationship with Mr. Marcus Carter? Lena was silent. She had no birth certificate or other documents with her. A passport is enough, her father had said, and for years that had been true. Until today. I don't have any with me, she replied softly. Davis sighed. It was the breath of someone who had already made up his mind even before asking. Then I can't let you get on the plane. Evelyn's eyes widened. No. You can't do that. Her ticket is real. Davis looked at Evelyn like a stubborn child. You don't understand the situation. In aviation, security, suspicion always takes precedence. But this is a child. Evelyn burst out. And she did nothing wrong. Monica gritted her teeth. Evelyn, if you continue to disobey orders, I will write up a disciplinary report. Evelyn stiffened. Her throat felt dry. A slight shiver ran through her body. Lena saw it. She saw Evelyn struggling between kindness and fear, and she even at 16 knew it better than anyone. Davis turned back to Lena. Stand up. Lena stood up. Her small legs were shaking slightly, but she remained steady. Where are you taking me? Go to airport security. Someone will decide if you are fit to fly. Lena felt the ground beneath her feet disappear. But my father is waiting in Zurich. He believes I'm already on the plane. Davis's expression did not change. It is not my responsibility. If you do not have clear evidence, I cannot let you board this flight. And there it was. One sentence, one decision, and Lena's entire world fell silent. The plane door beeped, signaling it to close. Monica spoke quickly into the radio. Captain, the passenger in question has been detained. The flight may be closed. Evelyn turned away, not daring to look at Lena. If she looked, she knew she would cry. And she didn't want Monica to see her weak. Lena took a deep breath. This was the moment she felt most clearly how life was sometimes cruel to those who didn't deserve it. She said, her voice no longer trembling, So, has everyone decided? No one answered. She looked at Monica. You never believed me for a second. Did you? Monica did not reply, but her silence spoke volumes. Lena turned to Davis. You too. Davis paused for a beat. I followed the procedure. No, Lena said very softly. You did what you thought was right about me. Evelyn turned back to look at Lena, her eyes shining with something strong despite her broken heart. An inner strength that only those who have been hurt too many times have. Davis put his hand on her elbow. Let's go. Lena pulled her hand away. Not hard. Just a small, determined movement. I can go by myself. He said, nothing, just nodded. And so Lena, a 16-year-old girl with a valid ticket, valid luggage, and valid reason to fly, was left to walk like a deportee. She walked through the boarding area. A few passengers glanced at her one last time. Some averted their eyes. Some continued live streaming, whispering, "It must be real. Nobody knows the truth. Nobody needs the truth." Because sometimes, prejudice is strong enough to replace evidence. Just before Lena turned the corner, leading to the security room, Evelyn ran up, whispering, "Lena, I'm sorry. I'll report back to flight operations. I'll tell your dad." Lena shook her head. "No need, sis. I know this isn't your fault." Evelyn bit her lip. It was an apology she didn't deserve. But Lena said it anyway, as if she understood that there were good people in the world trapped in circumstances that prevented them from doing the right thing. "Lena," Evelyn whispered, "I promise. I won't be silent anymore." Lena smiled softly, a quiet, sad, but beautiful smile. "I believe you." And then she turned away, step into the long darkness that leads to the security room, a darkness that she doesn't know where it will lead. But one thing is for sure. It will take her to the storm in the sky where the truth no longer matters, and her life will be threatened by the very people who think they are doing the right thing. As the security door opened, Lena stepped into a space that was the complete opposite of the hustle and bustle of the airport. It was chillingly quiet. A metal table, two chairs facing each other. The white light shining down made Lena's skin even paler. She put down her backpack and sat. No one was holding her down. No one was tying her up. But looking at everything around her, Lena knew clearly. Sometimes it doesn't take handcuffs to make a child feel like a criminal. Agent Davis leaned against the wall. Bold, confident, and accustomed to the small amount of power he wielded every day to maintain order. Monica Hale stood by the door, her arms crossed as if afraid Lena would run away. In her eyes, Lena was not a girl, but a problem. "We'll begin a preliminary investigation," Davis said, pulling up a chair and sitting down across from Lena. "I just want to get on the plane," Lena replied softly. Not bitterly, not angry, just a small, simple truth, but more elusive than anything else. Davis opened the notebook. "Start from the beginning. Who bought your ticket?" "My dad." "Where is he?" "In Zurich. Waiting for me." Monica frowned. "Zurich. So, he's on a business trip or on vacation?" Lena took a slow breath. She knew this kind of question. She had heard it for years, questions not to find out, but to find a loophole. "He was on a business trip, and I went to see him." "What job?" Monica asked again, her voice filled with doubt, as if Lena was not qualified to have a father doing such an important job. "He is the CEO of Carter Dynamics," Lena replied. Monica chuckled, a small laugh, but enough to make Lena's heart drop. "Carter Dynamics. You say that, but you don't provide any proof." "You can call Dad." "No," Davis said. "We haven't authorized it." Lena looked at him. Her eyes were tired. "I'm not a criminal." Davis sat up straight. "We haven't concluded that yet." And that sentence was like a metal door slamming shut in her face. Meanwhile, outside, North Star Airlines Flight 118 was told by the captain to be ready for pushback. The plane doors closed. The door lock signal sounded. Evelyn sat in the jump seat near the front door. Her hands were cold and clasped together. She was staring at the floor, where the memory of Lena's eyes replayed in her mind like a scratched film reel. "She's just a child," Evelyn whispered. But her whisper was drowned out by the roar of the engines increasing in power. She knew from the moment the plane took off that things were out of her hands. And maybe out of reach even for Lena. In the security room, Davis continued to take notes. "Do you have cash?" "Yes. My dad gave it to me in case I need it." "How much?" "About $800. Monica took a deep breath, as if she had found golden evidence. She was carrying that much cash. Davis, did you see minors carrying that much cash is often related to no. Lena almost cried out. Not out of anger, but out of pain. "That's money my dad gave me for protection. I didn't do anything wrong." "Carrying money itself is not illegal," Davis said. "But it makes the situation more suspicious." Lena looked down at her hands. The skin on her thumbs was dry, the nails slightly scratched, small marks that told the story of her real life. A life, not perfect, not polished, but full of effort. She said softly, "Mr. Davis, if I looked a little different, would you suspect me like that?" Davis raised an eyebrow. "Different? What do you mean?" "If I were a white girl, wearing a nice dress, carrying a designer bag, blonde, curly hair, Do you think I would hack Monica? Immediately interjected. Are you implying we discriminate? Lena didn't dodge. I'm not implying, I'm asking. The room suddenly fell silent. Davis looked at Lena. Didn't say anything. Didn't argue. And that silence is the most painful answer. 30 minutes passed. The plane outside had left the gate and was approaching the runway. The wall-mounted control panel in the security room displays Flight 118. Departed. Lena saw the words. Her heart felt like it was being squeezed. Dad was waiting in Zurich. Her first trip. The excitement of the past 3 months, it all went up in smoke because people thought she didn't deserve a first-class seat. Davis turned to her. You can leave the airport or buy a new ticket. But given the circumstances, I can't guarantee you'll be able to get on another flight today. Lena stood up very slowly, as if every movement made her heart ache a little more. I understand, she said. We'll write the passenger off due to ticket verification issues, Davis said evenly. Lena asked, did you write that? I am not allowed to prove the truth. Davis paused. That is not part of the procedure. Lena nodded. I guess so. She put on her backpack, walked out the door, past Monica. Monica tried to avoid her eyes, but Lena still said a sentence as light as the wind. You never asked me the most important question. Monica turned back. What sentence? I never asked. Is my ticket correct? I just asked. Do I belong here? The words made Monica stiffen for a moment. Then she turned away, as if the truth had hit her, but she dared not hold it. Lena stepped out into the hallway. The security door closed behind her. She stood alone, the airport speakers blaring, the wheels of her suitcase sliding across the stone floor. It felt like standing at a crossroads of the world. No one stopped. No one asked. No one knew how badly a little heart had been bruised. But she did not cry. It's not because she's so strong that she doesn't feel pain, but because she learned from a very young age, tears can never save you from judgmental eyes, but pride can keep you upright. She tightened her backpack strap. She thought to herself, Dad, I'm sorry. I did my best. And she didn't know. Halfway around the world, her father, Marcus Carter, was looking at his phone screen, where Lena's GPS point hadn't moved. And her daughter's heart rate was dropping. The real storm, just brewing. Marcus Carter was standing in a conference room in a glass building in Zurich when the phone in his pocket rang for the third time in 5 minutes. He was a man of calm demeanor, but the unusual signals from the home health monitoring system on his phone made him feel an indescribable unease. He opened the app. The screen displayed Lena Carter, heart rate 585, 147 BPM status. Elevated stress response location, JFK International Airport. Terminal 4 movement static. Marcus frowned. His entire body sagged for a split second, but it was enough for his assistant to notice. Sir, is something wrong? The assistant asked. Marcus didn't answer right away. He looked closer at the GPS map. The green dot representing Lena, supposed to be on a plane bound for Zurich, was still in the terminal. No moving, no boarding, no leaving U.S. soil. A chill ran down Marcus's spine. Lena was never late, never forgot to text, never worried him like this. He dialed his daughter's number. It ringed, then stopped. No one listens. On the third floor of the conference room, through the wide glass doors overlooking the Alps in the distance, Marcus stood with his back straight, but his shoulders were as tense as a guitar string. He dialed again. Still, no one answered. Third time, still silence. Marcus clenched his fists on the phone. Half a minute later, he called North Star Airlines. Hello, this is Marcus Carter. I need to confirm the status of passenger Lena Carter flight NS 118 from New York to Zurich, just departed. The operator replied in a flat voice. Yes. Let me check. Just a minute. A minute. But to Marcus, it felt like a lifetime. Meanwhile, at JFK, Lena stood in front of the large glass panel overlooking the runway, where the pale yellow light reflected off the thin mist on the tarmac. The Boeing 787, the one she was supposed to be on, was picking up speed, taxiing down the runway, then gently lifting off the ground. It flies up, higher, further. Lena put her hand on the glass. Her chest tightened. In that moment, she felt like a part of herself was lifted off the ground, but not in the direction of freedom, but in the direction of being left behind. Dad, she whispered. Her voice was so low that only she could hear it. I'm sorry. No tears fell, but her heart ached as if her whole body was being squeezed. Back to Zurich. The operator returned to the line. Mr. Carter, there is something we need to announce. Marcus held his breath. Your daughter did not board the flight. The whole room seemed to spin. Marcus felt the floor fall away from him. Not going up. Why? His voice was low, but each word seemed to contain a storm. I don't know. The system note says, passenger detained due to security concerns. Marcus clenched the phone until his knuckles turned white. Security, he asked again. She's 16. Why is she a security concern? I'm really sorry, sir. I don't have the details. Marcus closed his eyes. A flash of images flashed through his mind. Little Lena hugging her father after her first piano recital. 10-year-old Lena tying her doll's hair, chanting the words to her favorite song. 16-year-old Lena beaming as her father handed her a first-class ticket for her first solo trip. In an instant, the best memories of his life turned to a sharp pain. A pain that could not be described in words. Marcus opened his eyes. His expression changed completely. Calm as a lake, but underneath is a deep abyss. Give me the JFK security hotline, he said. Yes, I will do it now, Marcus shouted, but not because he was angry. He knew something was very wrong. At JFK, Lena walked down the hallway, clutching her backpack. She didn't know where to go, didn't know what to tell her father, didn't know where to start about the humiliation of being labeled a suspect. She sat down on a chair by the glass door. She looked up at the high ceiling and the white light shining on her young but strong face. She whispered, if Dad knows about this, he will be very sad. Phone vibrated. Notification 18. Missed calls. Dad. Lena's heart clenched. She didn't pick up. She was afraid her father's voice would shake. Afraid he would worry. Afraid he would think she wasn't strong enough to take care of herself. I'm fine, Dad, she said softly. But the tears finally fell. One drop, then another, very softly, as if she were apologizing to herself. Zurich. Marcus calls the JFK security hotline. This is JFK, airport security. How may I help you? Marcus didn't beat around the bush. I'm Marcus Carter. I want to know why my daughter was detained and not allowed on Flight 118. Please wait a moment, sir. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. The people in the conference room parted, no one daring to breathe loudly. 15 seconds later. 20 seconds. 40 seconds. Then, the line came back. Sir, your daughter's case was reported by Air Marshal Davis Moore and Chief Flight Attendant Monica Hale. Marcus narrowed his eyes. Why no passenger with first-class ticket does not match identity profile? Suspicious appearance. Marcus closed his eyes. His heart clenched. Doesn't match the profile. That is, people think your daughter, a black child, can't have a first-class ticket. That prejudice. He had faced it thousands of times in his life. But the fact that it happened to his daughter, a child who was not yet capable of protecting herself, that was what made him feel like fire in his heart. Marcus's voice dropped so dangerous that even the person on the other end of the line had to swallow. My daughter is the identity record. The problem is the people who don't realize it. Meanwhile, Lena sat alone in the waiting area. She looked out at the dark sky. The lights from other planes shone through the windows. It felt like everything was moving except her. A cleaning staff passed by and saw the little girl sitting there in a daze. Are you lost? The woman asked softly. Lena shook her head. No, I'm just waiting. Waiting for who? A long sigh escaped from that small chest. Waiting for something better. The woman didn't understand the whole story, but she put her hand on Lena's shoulder and squeezed it gently. It was a small action, but it made Lena's heart soften a little. Zurich. Marcus immediately called the North Star Airlines president's office. Even though it was late at night, he had priority access. After 3 rings, a deep and confident male voice said, Marcus, what are you calling for at this hour? Marcus spoke slowly, enunciating each word. Richard, my daughter was just removed from your flight. For no good reason. I want to know, now, who is responsible? Richard was stunned for a few seconds. Marcus, what do you say? Removed from the flight. For what reason? Marcus clenched his jaw. Because she doesn't look like a first-class passenger. Richard breathed heavily over the phone. Marcus, I don't apologize to me, Marcus, said his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. You call the flight crew, you call JFK, and you turn on every cameras in the boarding area. Richard swallowed. Okay, I'll do it right away. Marcus continued. And Richard, yes, you tell them that now. It's not just a mistake anymore. They touched my daughter. Silence. A kind of silence that sends chills down one's spine. Lena was still unaware that at the same time, the entire top management system was starting to move just because of one father. But she knew. Her heart was tired. She put her hand to her chest. Her heart beat fast, and then slow, as if it were missing a beat. She didn't know that on her father's phone, that parameter was flashing red. Dad, she whispered. I'm sorry, I'm not as strong as you think I am. Her voice faded into the airport speakers. And that was the moment when Lena's fate was about to take a dark turn. Inside the glass office in Zurich, the air was thick. Marcus Carter stood with his back to everyone, his hands on the desk, his head slightly bowed. Everyone knew the sign. When a man like Marcus was silent, it meant that inside him there was a fire that words could not contain. Richard, CEO of North Star Airlines, was still on the line. His voice was more strained than before. Marcus, I just called the chief of operations at JFK. They confirmed. Lena was detained on suspicion of ticket fraud. Marcus closed his eyes. His shoulders shook slightly for just a second. But when he opened them, they were as sharp as fire. Ticket fraud. He repeated the words slowly, as if he wanted to make sure he heard correctly. I asked them to check the cameras again, Richard continued. But Marcus, there was a problem. Marcus turned. What problem? The camera system in the boarding gate area just reported an error. Marcus froze. Error. All cameras at once, yes. They said the system was reset for a short time. Marcus put his hands on the table. The floor seemed to shake beneath his feet. Richard. His voice was so low, it sounded like stones rolling in a dark cave. Don't tell me it's just a coincidence. Richard sighed. I can't say for sure, but Marcus, I think this is more serious than we think. Marcus walked to the window. The lights of Zurich reflected in his eyes like muffled stars. He spoke softly, but enough to make Richard shiver. My daughter was removed from the flight. No explanation, no phone call, no confirmation of the truth. And now, the camera accidentally recorded nothing. A cold silence. Then Marcus concluded in a voice as sharp as a knife. Someone is trying to cover something up. Meanwhile, Lena remained sitting quietly in the area near the glass door. Her legs pulled close to her body, as if to keep herself from shattering into pieces. Even though she was trying to be strong, she was still just a scared child. Not scared of being yelled at, not scared of being punished, but scared of something else, scared of disappointing her father. Phone vibrated again. 20 missed calls. New message. Dad, where are you, Dad? Call me back. Dad, Lena, please. Lena looked at the screen, her eyes red. I know you're worried, she said softly, but I don't want you to see me being treated like a nobody. She clenched her hands into her lap. I promise I'll be okay, but I don't want you to see me weak. In another corner of the terminal, Evelyn, the young stewardess who had seen it all, had not yet returned home. She stood by the small coffee shop holding a hot cup in her hands, but not drinking. In her mind, she saw Lena being led away. No screaming, no arguing. Just a look of sadness that would break an adult's heart. Evelyn knew it was wrong. She knew it was wrong the moment she saw Monica doubt the ticket based on its appearance. But she was afraid of losing her job, afraid of being seen as disunited, afraid of not following the process. Evelyn wondered, why do we let fear overshadow what is right? She sighed. A quiet determination rose in her heart. She wouldn't let Lena suffer any more pain. Zurich. Richard said on the phone, Marcus, I know this is going to make you angry, but I need you to calm down so we can cooperate with the investigation. Marcus laughed, a soft but heavy laugh. Richard, when you become a father, you will know there are things that don't require calmness. Marcus turned and grabbed his jacket. Are you still on the line? Have. I bought the earliest flight back to New York. Richard was silent for a few seconds. Marcus, do you think we should let me handle the internal matters first? Marcus stopped in the middle of the room, turned and said slowly, no, I need to look into the eyes of the people who did this. and I need my daughter to see her father on her side." His voice cracked a little on the last sentence, but it gave his words more weight. At JFK, Lena stood up. She didn't want to stay here anymore. It felt like everyone who passed by was giving her strange looks, or maybe she just thought so because she was so tired. She walked slowly towards the main entrance of the terminal. Her sneakers clicked lightly on the stone floor. Every sound was heavy. At the exit, the cold New York wind blew into her face. And just then, a voice called from behind. "Lena." She turned back. Evelyn was running, breathing heavily, her hair flying in the wind. "Are you okay?" Evelyn asked, her eyes filled with genuine concern. Lena looked at her, the only person in the entire airline who looked at her with human eyes, and couldn't help it anymore. She burst into tears. Evelyn rushed to hug her. No words, no fuss, just the embrace of an adult. For a child who had tried to be strong for too long. Lena whispered through her tears. "Why did they do that to me?" Evelyn swallowed. "Because they were wrong, not me." Lena leaned her head on Evelyn's shoulder. "I just want to go back to Dad." Evelyn hugged her tighter. "I'll be back. I promise." Then Evelyn continued, her voice trembling slightly but firmly, "And I will testify for you." Zurich. Marcus was on his way to the airport when his phone rang with new information from the family health monitoring system. Lena Carter, heart rate 43 BPM, stress level critical, movement low status. Possible distress. Marcus stopped in the family health middle of Zurich airport, as if struck by lightning. His chest tightened. His breath hitched. 43 BPM for a 16-year-old girl. That's not stress. That's a sign of physical exhaustion. He shook his hand as he called his daughter back for the 24th time. Lena did not reply. No one answered. Marcus felt like someone was squeezing his heart with their bare hands. He just had time to pray, silently. "Lena, don't collapse now. Daddy is coming." And he walked faster, almost running, through the station, carrying with him an unprecedented fear. Because underneath all the composure he built his whole life, there is only one truth. There is no power stronger than the fear of losing a child. The sky over New York was dark, the distant lights cast against the thick clouds like lonely candles. Outside the terminal, the line of people waiting for taxis was still bustling, but in Lena's heart, everything seemed to slow down. After crying in Evelyn's arms, she felt a little lighter, not because everything was okay, but because for the first time all evening, she was being treated like a human being. Evelyn gently wiped the tears from Lena's cheeks. "Do you have somewhere to go while you wait for Dad to arrive?" Evelyn asked. Lena shook her head. "I don't want to go home alone. I just want to sit somewhere with light." Evelyn nodded. "Then come with me. I can't leave you here alone when things are like this." Lena squeezed her backpack. "Thank you." Evelyn placed a hand on her back, as gently as one might guide a lost child back to safety. But they don't know. On the upper floor of the terminal building in the security monitoring room, Monica Hale stood in front of a large screen where a series of cameras displayed images from all sides of the airport. And in the bottom left corner, an image of Lena and Evelyn appeared. It's not that the camera itself is working properly. It's that the technician is trying to restore the temporarily broken video. Monica took a deep breath. Her throat was dry. Anyone who looks at the video of Lena being asked for her ticket will see the favoritism, the unwarranted suspicion, the insult. She knows that, and she felt scared. Not fear of losing my job, not fear of being punished, fear of being seen by myself. She was afraid to face the truth that over the years she had gotten used to judging people based on their appearance, a habit she thought of as professional experience. But tonight, it became incriminating evidence. "I'm getting some of it back," the technician said. "It should be all back soon." Monica swallowed. "Can you delete it?" The technician turned, frowning. "No, this is investigative data. We are not allowed to touch it." Monica stood frozen. Her hands were shaking. Her dream of promotion, stability, a model life, was crumbling little by little. A voice echoed in her mind. "If the truth comes out, everything will be over." She bit her lip, unaware that across the ocean, a hurricane named Marcus Carter was flying toward New York faster than a plane. In the taxi, Marcus rested his phone on his knee, his eyes glued to the screen displaying Lena's heartbeat. Heart rate, 42 BPM. Stress level critical movement. Weak. He couldn't breathe. These were not lifeless numbers. To Marcus, they were cries for help. He said to the driver, "Can you please drive faster? I need to get to the airport." The driver looked at him in the rearview mirror. Seeing Marcus's face tired and tense, he nodded. "I understand. I'll get you there as soon as possible." Marcus nodded slightly, but his heart began to tremble. Since his wife's death, Lena has been the last breath of this family. He raised her with the gentleness of a father, trying to fill both roles, always teaching her that there are still many beautiful things in this world. But now, that world was treating her like a criminal just because of her skin color. Her appearance and her first-class ticket. "Lena, hang in there. Daddy's coming," Marcus whispered, and he clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white. By this time, Lena and Evelyn had arrived at a fast food restaurant right in the terminal. It was a simple, warm place with people coming and going constantly, no one paying attention to anyone. They both sat at a table by the window. Evelyn bought Lena a cup of hot chocolate. "A little sugar will help you breathe easier," Evelyn said, setting the glass before her. Lena blew gently into the thin layer of steam that rose. The scent of hot cocoa filled the air. She took a sip and felt her throat soothe. A small feeling, but it was all she needed at that moment. "I think you should call Dad," Evelyn said softly. Lena shook her head. "I don't want you to worry." Evelyn looked at her for a long time. "You know, sometimes being strong isn't about enduring in silence. It's about letting the person you love know you need them." Lena looked down. Her voice trembled. I'm afraid Dad will see me fail." "Lena." Evelyn took her hand. "You are not a failure. The failures are those who treated you like this." Lena looked into Evelyn's sincere eyes. A warmth spread through her. She opened her phone. Her fingers trembled as she pressed Dad. The phone rings. 1, 2, 3. Then someone picked up. Lena. Marcus's voice rang out hoarse with worry. Lena bit her lip. "Dad." Before she could say more, Marcus's heavy breathing filled her ears. "Daughter, where are you? Why is your heart rate so low? Why didn't you get on the plane? Did someone do something to you?" Each question was like a needle piercing Lena's heart. Her voice choked up. "Dad, they think I don't deserve to be there." At that moment, the other end of the line was silent. There was a silence that made Lena feel like the whole world was standing still. Then Marcus said slowly, word by word, "Stay where you are. I'm coming, and I promise, this won't end the way they want." In the security monitoring room, Monica was still standing in front of the monitor, her hands gripping the edge of the table. "I have the sound back," said the technician. "The picture is almost done." Monica's voice from hours ago began to play on the screen. "You need to wait in the waiting area. First-class tickets are not available for you." And Lena's voice calm but full of hurt. "But here's my ticket." Squealing. The sound of her being dragged. Suspicion. Security calling. It all rang out clearly. Monica felt her knees go weak. If this video gets into Marcus Carter's hands, she's done for. But she didn't know. There is no way to stop the truth once it begins to shine. Later that evening, Lena and Evelyn were still sitting in the diner. The shop door opened, a cold wind blew in. Lena raised her head. A tall figure stood in the doorway, panting from running. The light from the sign above fell on his face. "That's Marcus." "Dad." Lena stood up. Marcus quickened his pace, almost rushing to embrace his daughter. He held her tight to his chest, as if to protect her with all his body. "My daughter. You're okay. Daddy's here." Lena choked. "Dad. I'm scared." Marcus put his hand behind her head. "I know. But from now on, you don't have to be afraid anymore." Evelyn stood beside him, silent, but her eyes were red. Marcus looked at Evelyn. "Thank you for being there for her." Evelyn shook her head. "She didn't deserve that. I was just doing what any good person would do." Marcus nodded slightly. He knew this wasn't over. This is just the lull before the real storm comes. And he was ready. The small restaurant in the terminal gradually emptied. The tables had been wiped clean, and the soft yellow light cast a fragile sense of peace on the tiled floor, the kind of peace that only appeared after hours of too much chaos. Marcus held Lena in his arms for several long minutes. He didn't let go in a hurry, as if afraid that if he did, everything would disappear and Lena would be torn away from him again. Finally, he bent down and gently touched his son's forehead. Do you hurt anywhere? Lena shook her head. Her voice was as small as the wind. No, Dad, just a little tired. Evelyn stood beside him, clutching a crumpled tissue. She looked at Marcus guiltily. Sir, I'm really sorry. I saw what happened back then. I wanted to intervene, but I was afraid. Marcus raised his hand, gently stopping her. No, I thank you for being there for my daughter. On a night when people forget what kindness is, you remembered. A very calm sentence. But when Evelyn heard it, her eyes turned red. Marcus pulled out a chair and sat down next to Lena. He took his daughter's hand and asked, Can you tell me from the beginning? No need to rush. Any length will do. Lena looked out the window. A light snow had begun to fall on the runway. The white light reflected off her face, making her strong eyes appear even more fragile. She began to tell, slowly, every detail, every moment, every word that scratched her heart. Evelyn stood silently listening. And when Lena got to the part about being dragged away, suspected treated like a thief, Marcus's hand clenched. Lena looked down at her father's fingers. She had never seen him squeeze his hands so tightly, except the day their mother died. He didn't make a sound. He didn't breathe heavily. But his eyes were as dark as the sky before a storm. Lena ended with a whisper. I don't want to disappoint you, Dad. Marcus touched her chin, lifting it slightly. Daughter, you never let me down for a second, even when you cried. Lena swallowed her tears. But they look at me like I don't belong there. Marcus leaned his hands on the table. His voice dropped very small, but sharp as steel. It's not that you don't belong there. It's that they're not good enough to be worthy of standing next to you. Evelyn turned away to hide her rising emotions. At that moment, an airport security officer walked into the restaurant. Mr. Carter. Marcus stood up immediately. It's me. The staff looked at him with a mixture of wariness and respect. Everyone knew the name Marcus Carter, the global CEO, who was shaking up the system with an investigation that was quietly unfolding. You were asked to come to the third-floor security office. They wanted to explain your daughter's situation. Marcus looked at Lena. She grabbed his sleeve. Don't go alone. He bent down. If you want to come, you can come with me. But you're tired. You can stay with Evelyn. Lena shook her head vigorously. No, this time, I want to stand up on my own. That was the sentence that made Marcus look at his daughter longer. He saw again in those small eyes a strength that sometimes even adults do not have. He nodded. Come on, princess. We'll hear them out. And then it's Dad's turn. The third floor of airport security is a series of closed rooms with harsh white lights and cold steel tables. When Marcus walked in, Monica Hale was sitting there. Her face was pale. There were dark circles under her eyes. Her hands were clasped together, her nails digging into her skin until it was red. She did not look up. She did not dare. Next to her was Agent Davis Moore, who no longer had the same arrogant confidence as before. He sat up straight, but his eyes were full of uncertainty. A security manager stood up. Mr. Carter, first of all, we apologize for your daughter's experience. We are reviewing all of the video statements and procedures. Marcus pulled out a chair and sat down next to Lena. He didn't look at Monica or Davis. He looked straight at the manager. Sorry, that's not what I came here to hear. The manager paused. So I want the truth. Marcus interrupted, his voice chillingly calm. He turned to Monica. Mrs. Hale, you were the first to suspect my daughter. Would you care to explain? Monica shivered. I was just following procedure. Her ticket doesn't look good on her. Marcus asked again. When Monica did not answer, he tilted his head, his eyes cold. Or does it not look good on her skin color? The room seemed to have all the air sucked out. Monica swallowed. No, I didn't mean to discriminate. Unintentional. Marcus leaned back in his chair. I've lived 47 years. I've seen enough discrimination to know when it's unintentional and when it's intentional. Monica bowed her head. Her lip trembled. She had no words to offer in her defense. Marcus Quay, sang Davis. What about you? A kid gets called for ticket fraud, and you immediately show up like he's a criminal. Davis gasped. I was reacting based on the information I received from the chief flight attendant. I felt it was necessary to ensure safety. Marcus leaned toward him. Very slowly, very calmly. Whose safety? The safety of the passengers, or the safety of the prejudice you carry with you every day? Davis laughed nervously. Mr. Carter, are you implying we are bad people? Marcus replied immediately. I don't need any hints. Your actions speak for themselves. Lena sat beside him, her hands clutching the hem of her shirt, but her eyes did not avert. She looked straight at Monica, the person who had humiliated her all evening, and she said in a strangely calm voice, Do you know what hurts the most? Monica looked up. Her eyes were panicked. It's not that you think I cheated. It's that you didn't ask me a single question to check. The remark hit Monica so hard that she fell back in her chair. She realized something cruel. While holding on to her small seat of power, she had forgotten something very simple: listening to a child. The security manager spoke up. Mr. Carter, I understand your outrage. The whole matter will be turned over to the feds. But for now, we would like to ask for the right to. Marcus stood up. Or not. The room was as silent as a cemetery. I'm not here to ask for compensation. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I'm not here to hear the words, we'll see. He put his hand on Lena's shoulder. I am here because my daughter has been treated like a criminal simply because she does not fit your fantasy of a first-class passenger. Marcus looked straight at each of them, and he said something that made the whole room cold. From this moment on, the story no longer belongs to you. It belongs to the law, and it belongs to the truth. Leaving the conference room, Evelyn ran over. Lena, are you okay? Lena smiled slightly, a weak smile but brighter than before. I'm better, because Dad is here. Evelyn put her hand on her shoulder. I'm glad. Marcus looked at Evelyn. Thank you, but this isn't over yet, and it could be big. Evelyn nodded. Then I will side with you too. Marcus looked at her, saw the sincerity in her eyes, and nodded. That night, snow fell heavily outside JFK's window. But in the cold, three people stood side by side: a father, a daughter, and a stranger brave enough to become an ally. The peace only lasted a moment, because in the next part, the storm will officially begin. The next morning, the first rays of sunlight shone through the large windows of the hotel near the airport. The snow outside had stopped falling, leaving the ground damp and shimmering with light. In the quiet room, Lena opened her eyes. She looked to her right. Marcus was sitting by the bed, head bowed, half leaning in his chair. His suit was wrinkled from a sleepless night, but his hand was still clasped around hers as if he let go, she would disappear from his sight again. Lena smiled slightly, the smile of a child who had just survived a long, terrifying night. She shook her hand slightly. Marcus opened his eyes immediately. Daughter. His voice was hoarse, but his eyes were strangely warm. Can you sleep? Lena nodded. What about you, Dad? Can you sleep? Marcus looked at the wrinkles on his hands, then back at his daughter. Dad had the best sleep, just knowing you were right here. Lena chuckled, but her eyes were still red. The pain of last night didn't disappear immediately. It just remained in a corner of her heart. Around noon, when the father and son went down to the hotel lobby, they found Evelyn waiting. She stood up abruptly when she saw Lena. Are you feeling better? Evelyn asked. Lena nodded. Thanks to you yesterday, I was able to hold out until Dad got here. Evelyn smiled, but her eyes were cold. You are much stronger than you think. Marcus walked over and shook Evelyn's hand. What are you here for today? Evelyn looked at father and son, then lowered her voice. The airline called me. They wanted me to keep quiet about what I saw yesterday, and promised to protect my position if I cooperated. Marcus narrowed his eyes. And if you don't cooperate, then they will review my professional qualifications. Lena worried. Are you going to be okay? Evelyn sat down in a chair, her hands clasped together. You know, I thought a lot last night. I thought about how I kept quiet when they treated you unfairly just because I was afraid of losing my job. I thought about how many other children would have to suffer like you if I continued to stay silent. Evelyn raised her head. Her voice was soft but firm. And I decided I would tell the truth. Lena looked at her for a long time. A warm feeling spread through her heart. For the first time in hours, she saw that the world still had people on the side of justice. Marcus nodded. You could lose your job, he said. I know, Evelyn replied. But there are things that can no longer be kept silent. That statement made Marcus look at her differently, the eyes of someone who had fought injustice all his life, and now saw a true ally. That day, at North Star Airlines' legal office, Marcus Carter walked in looking calm, but every step carried the energy of a man with nothing left to lose. Lena walked beside him, her hands no longer shaking like they had last night. She stood straight, her eyes determined, as if she was going not just for herself, but for the other children who might find themselves in the same situation. Room amenities available times. Richard Coleman, CEO North Star. Asterisk. The firm's lawyer. Asterisk. JFK Airport Security Representative. Asterisk Monica Hale and Agent Davis Moore, with obvious fear on their faces. Everyone stood up when Marcus walked in. Richard spoke first. Marcus. First of all, let me apologize on behalf of the entire system. What happened to Lena? Marcus raised his hand gently but firmly. I don't need an apology. I need responsibility. Richard sighed. We've looked at the whole video. We've listened to the recording. And there's no way we can justify what happened. Marcus looked towards Monica. She sank down into her chair when his eyes met hers. Mrs. Hale, Marcus said, I don't believe you're evil. But you let your prejudices define my daughter's worth. Monica burst into tears. I didn't think it would go this far. No idea, Marcus interrupted, because he didn't think a child was treated like a criminal overnight. Davis bowed his head, speechless. Richard stood up. Marcus, we will be taking disciplinary action against both of you. But I also want to add that what happened was not just an individual incident. It exposed a flaw in the system, and we are committed to root cause change. Marcus looked straight at him. Good, because if not, he took a step forward. I will build another system, a system to protect children like Lena. Richard swallowed. We fully support you, Marcus. That afternoon, on a small stage in the press room, in front of dozens of cameras and reporters, Lena stood before the public for the first time. She did not tremble, not because she is the daughter of a powerful CEO, but because she knows what she is about to say will help those who have no voice. Evelyn stood behind her. Marcus to her right, his hand resting lightly on his daughter's shoulder. Lena took a deep breath, and she told, not to blame, not to avenge, but to remind the world of something seemingly simple: don't judge a kid by his hoodie. The whole conference room was silent. Lena concluded, I was lucky to have a father who could speak up for me. But what about those who don't have one? I wanted to create a place where they wouldn't have to go through what I went through. A place where their voices would be heard. Marcus looked at his son, his eyes shining with deep pride. Richard stepped up and handed the father and son a large sponsorship contract. North Star will join the Carter family in establishing the Carter Initiative, an organization to protect the rights of young passengers. Applause broke out. Not the noise of excitement, but the respect for the truth. That evening before leaving JFK, Lena stood at the glass door, looking out at the vast runway. The cold wind blew through her hair, but her heart was no longer cold. Evelyn stood beside. Are you okay? Lena nodded. Yesterday, I was scared. Today, I am a little stronger. Tomorrow, I will be even stronger. Evelyn smiled. I believe you. Marcus walked over and put his coat over his daughter's shoulders. Let's go home, son. We have a lot to do tomorrow. Lena leaned her head on his shoulder. Yes. She looked back at the night sky once more. The plane she missed last night was no longer in sight. Only the lights of new opportunities, that from pain one can still find hope to move forward. Because justice does not begin in a courtroom. It begins in hearts that dare to speak the truth. If you felt Lena and Marcus's journey touch your heart, please click like to support the storyteller's spirit. Please share to spread the message of respect and justice. And remember to subscribe to not miss the next humane stories. Thanks for staying till the end. See you in the next video.